At 6 o'clock, we can call this meeting to order. It's the regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Education on July 22nd. Rachel, please take the roll.
Mrs. Horn,
Here.
Mr. Chitwood,
Here.
Mrs. Milius,
Here.
Mr. Ewing, Mrs. Mitchell.
Here. I'm here.
Here. Mr. Hull,
Here.
Mrs. Baker. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, moving on to approval of the agenda. So move.
Madam President, I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, I need a second. Is that
Second.
Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, you were going for just so moved?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'll second it.
all right. Any further discussion? All right, Rachel. Take
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Hull,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn.
Yes.
Approved.
Thank you. All right. Would you all please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance. Okay, moving on to the reading of the mission and vision. This is something we read to keep in the forefront of everything we speak about and decide at all the meetings. Our vision is to maintain small town values and empower each student to achieve world-class success. And our mission is to be a school district that engages students to learn, create, adapt, and succeed in an ever-changing world. All right. Public participation. Rachel, do we have any cards?
No cards were presented.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda, which includes the consent agenda, the approval of the consent agenda, approval of the minutes, clerk's report, treasurer's report, payroll and claims, personnel, special education contracts, teaching and learning renewals, and Spring Hill Sports Live contract.
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Rachel, please collect the vote.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Hull,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood.
Yes.
Approved.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We have an action item. Dr. Luttrell?
Yes, we discussed last month the need to have an additional vendor available to help us make sure that we have enough monthly credit line on the credit cards that we send a lot with our organizations and staff when they go to meetings, and that our current vendor is only allotted a particular amount. And so we had presented, our CFO presented, Mr. Schwinn, an opportunity that we could not only that would not only meet our needs, but also would provide some additional for every month, certain amounts spent, some additional points that would yield some cash back. And so that was with First Option Bank. And so we're asking that First Option Bank become our credit card provider for district expenses when our students and staff are out of district travel.
Any comments, thoughts, questions?
Madam President, I move to approve action item 7.01 as presented.
Second.
Wonderful. All right. Motion and a second. Any final comments? Rachel?
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Hull,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius.
Yes.
Approved.
Wonderful. All right, moving on to 8.01, textbooks for Carpentry 1, Auto, Home, and Life courses at Spring Hill High School.
Okay, if you recall, last spring, we did have quite a few textbooks that we put on display for patrons to be able to view, as well as we had a committee that also then critiqued them to make sure they were appropriate after they had been, vetted to make sure that they aligned with our curriculum. And we approved most of those. However, there were several that were more in the career tech. And one of our main individuals that last spring was unavailable due to some leave. And so we kind of held back on those. And so this evening we have Teaching and Learning Dr. Smith, as well as our Real World Learning Coordinator, Mrs. Leah Good, giving us some information about these 3 books and what we would like you to do after you discuss them. Dr. Smith.
Thank you. Good evening. So as Dr. Luttrell mentioned, Leah Good, who serves as our Career and Technical Education and Real World Learning Coordinator, was our lead facilitator in the text adoption process for Carpentry and Auto, Home, and Life courses at Spring Hill High School. And she is returning from maternity leave. So she's here this evening to share a little bit about the process that the team underwent and share with you the results of the pilot evaluation and the recommended purchases. So Leah.
Hi, thank you. So we went through this, and it meets with our student success portion of our strategic plan, ensuring that all of our students meet or exceed grade level academic expectations. So like Dr. Smith said, I worked with a team of 3 teachers at the high school for both of these courses. And we met in January and February to pre-screen the resources. We found 5 for Auto, Home, and Life, or 4 for Auto, Home, and Life, and 5 for Carpentry. So the team went through and pre-screened those, and we decided which ones we would move forward with the pilot, assuming everything went through okay. We held the public participation event at the end of February, and that was the same event where all of the other textbooks were displayed. And then the Educational Council looked at the resources that we were hoping to pilot in April and May. And then our teachers went through and piloted at the end of the school year, both of the texts for both classes. And we found some good research or good information out of that. So the pilot results for Auto, Home, and Life, we looked at core introduction to basic construction, as well as the Residential Construction Academy. And the core blew the other one out of the water. Looking at the pilot results, Residential Construction Academy really didn't align with the KSDE standards for Auto, Home, and Life. And then looking at Carpentry, we looked at General Carpentry and Modern Carpentry. And again, this one was a little bit closer, but we looked more, General Carpentry met more of the KSDE standards. The other criterion were really pretty close in the results. I think it was just 1 point off on each of those. So the standards is really where it fell. So after looking at that, our recommendation is to go with both of these products from Savas. And we would have 85 students in Auto, Home, and Life. That's an introductory level course for students at the high school level. And then 55 students a year in Carpentry 1, which is at the technical level. So that's kind of our middle level for our CTE courses. And then next steps, if we are good to go forward with this, we will move to purchase those products and get those in for the start of the school year. And that would be both a textbook as well as the online resources for both books. Any questions?
Welcome back, Leah. It's good to see you. As a new board member, this is just education for, I think, most of us here, but where do you draw the beginning of an evaluation like this? Is there, in other words, is there a pool of resources that you draw from? Do you rely on KSDE? Just explain to me a little bit how you kind of end up focusing on the group that you do focus on.
Absolutely. So I reached out to kind of all of the larger vendors that we traditionally that Teaching and Learning works with normally to see if they had any books and resources that would align with the KSDE standards. KSDE does not typically recommend a textbook for any of the CTE courses. So a lot of times it's kind of what are other schools using? Right now for the construction pathway, they are recommending NCCER, which is the Savas products that we chose. So they are recommending that's kind of a vendor that they work with a lot, and they're associated with the Associated General Contractors of Kansas City. So they're a business partner that we can utilize.
So one thing I will say too as well, our State Department of Education doesn't necessarily recommend or promote a specific vendor. We do work with other organizations, consortiums. For example, Greenbush has a consortium of school districts with CTE coordinators who would regularly meet to discuss things like their pathways, their programs, and instructional materials. So that's a great group of individuals to rely upon for guidance and advice when you're searching for new texts and materials specifically for career and technical education pathways.
Yeah, so that kind of leads me to another train of thought real quick. So I'll just throw it out there. In our planning for the KASB conference in November, I was thinking this is an area where I attended last year, but this is an area I'd kind of hope that there is some type of track to follow for CTE. And so you mentioned something with Greenbush. Is there a list then of the school districts in Kansas that do offer CTE? Is there a resource out there where I could just see what those school districts are? It has nothing to do with what we're doing right now, other than just.
I don't know if there's necessarily like a published list of school districts and like easily accessible to just say, hey, what are the school districts that are currently offering programs and what would those programs be? Although I think we could certainly.
The Greenbush just kind of give you.
Greenbush could certainly help us indicate which school districts they work with. I would be surprised if there are very many school districts in Kansas, though, that do not have at least one pathway that they are offering.
Fair enough.
Especially now, given the state's focus on career and technical education and career preparation. So I would be pretty surprised if we ran into a school district that had nothing to offer.
Yeah, just a general background question, because I'm not sure I asked this before. So we're getting physical books, right? And they come out with new editions. Do publishers normally provide a pathway if they issue a new edition to upgrade at not a full rate? Or is this the curriculum for the next 6 years?
So that would depend on the publisher, although some will offer you an option to move up. If they issue something new, it might be at a discounted rate. Some will say we've made an overhaul and that wasn't something that we shared with you when you were going through this process. So we'll provide that for free. So that really depends on the vendor. But assuming there would be no major changes, and we're not expecting any major changes from the State Department, this product would align with our state standards for the next 6 years. And so I think we could be confident in using it for that length of time.
And you got where I'm going. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. Looks like we'll bring this back very, very soon.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is this something that we're just comfortable putting on the consent agenda for the next meeting?
We actually have an action item
Yeah,
just down the way here.
Oh.
So they can get them ordered.
Oh, okay,
So
cool.
there's an action item down at the bottom.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. All right, moving on, 8.02 architect contract.
Yes, and this is just more of an update. We do not asking for action. Just want to give an update. The last meeting on July 8th, we did bring, on July the 8th, the recommendation and everything. And we also had where we said we were going to make sure that our attorney reviewed the initial contract from DLR, which because of the 4th of July holiday, maybe slow things in a bit, but we did get that finally reviewed. We have sent that back with the revisions from what our attorney suggested would be some recommendations that we should consider to have DLR incorporate. We've done that. I've been in contact with DLR over those. They're hoping to get us some feedback late this week, early next week. At the same time, we also, as you know, which I know, and we need to probably have some more conversation whenever it comes back on the 12th, but there's also the component they brought to us was the architectural services, engineering, the community engagement piece. The master planning piece, like I said, is a separate piece. And I do believe, and like I said, in discussing with different individuals, there probably is some more interpretation and guidance that needs to be given to the board as a whole as to what's the deliverable on that going to look like? What is the timeline on that deliverable? I know there's also been some questions about, there had been prior work that had started quite a bit a while ago, back leaving last fall, even probably early last fall of 23, as to trying to get this rolling. And then, there was some circumstances that slowed that, but I think we need to be in agreement on that. But whenever we come back on the 12th with hopefully, a final contract of what's recommended that we agree is good, for the architectural engineering community engagement services, there will also be a component on that for the master planning piece, which will have a value on that in terms of a cost. And that's the time we will be able to address, okay, what's the deliverable on that? DLR can talk about what that looks like. We can answer questions. And then I still think that will be discussion on the 12th. And probably, I still think they should probably be both an action item together, even though they're separate. Probably then would move that probably then to that later August meeting to get final action. But in the meantime, DLR and I, Mr. Meek, we have been in almost nonstop communication. We are continuing to move forward with developing some timelines as we head into the fall and knowing what it is that we would like to get accomplished over the period of the next 9 to 12 months to make sure that work continues to progress, on that. But we will have much more information to share and give you a much more larger opportunity to ask your questions in that on the 12th. But it is still in the works, but it's not at all ready for action at this time.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Luttrell. Any comments or?
The
Discussion?
contract that we have that we're looking at, that's the same one that was there last meeting, right? So if we have any comments or something, they might not have been incorporated into this.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And that is a great point too, that if the copy that you still are not is the copy without any recommendation changes that the attorney has recommended. But so if you yourself have some thoughts, feel free, like I said, email them to me and Mr. Meek, and we will definitely tell you, hey, that was addressed with one of the ones that we sent, or we can also continue to send those. It's just that, again, we do ask that if you have those, try to get the sooner the better to get those to us.
Do we have like a current version of what you showed us has those thoughts in it yet? Or do we wait until the final version?
I would recommend that I get that the version that went back to DLR as what our attorney recommended be changed. And then I know that Mr. Tim and I looked over those and we kind of said, yeah, this we want to keep. And then we sent that back. I would say if by the end of the week, today's Monday, yeah, by the end of the week, if we get I expect something back from DLR on that incorporate, and I can send that out as part of the Friday update, possibly if I have it, so you all can at least access it, and that would be
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
if you prefer.
One of the questions I had is, can we find out when we're going to get a date for viewing the master planning agreement? Because I'm wholly reticent to approve anything
And
if we're not proving it all.
And I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I don't want to put Mr. Meek on the spot, but I think Mr. Meek will tell you that, yeah, I have definitely made it a point with DLR about, look, we can't put the master plan on the back burner. It has to be, we have to know what we're getting on both the architect and engineering as well as the master planning, what those timeframes are, what the deliverables are, and all discussed together to where, in other words, we can't bring the master, to me, we don't bring the master plan proposal after we've approved the architect. I mean, they need, at least there needs to be an understanding. Okay, yeah, they're gonna be an architect, okay, they're also doing master planning. Here's what we can expect from that and dates, everything. But Mr. Meek, we have been stressing to them about that.
Yeah, and I really was making my way up because that's the next item anyway, so I thought I'd make my way up here. But yeah, what Dr. Luttrell said is correct. I mean, it's kind of a chicken and egg deal too when it comes to the master plan and community engagement, because the community engagement is going to help us as a community or as a school district decide what direction we want to go. So it's, I wanted to say chicken and egg, but John might argue which came first. I'm not sure. So being a farmer like he is, he might have a different feel on that. So, but but they have to work together. So the complete master plan will be a part of the community engagement too. But we need to have a basis and also the facility, the assessment that we're going to be doing will have to be done before we would start any community engagement. The good news on that is that Mr. Delphia and DLR have been working on that previous to us going out for an RFP for architectural services. And they were quite a distance along in it, but Andy Anderson with DLR basically said that knowing that they may not be the architect chosen, he didn't think it was prudent for them to go ahead and finish it. I have that's all I'll say to a point. But at the same time, it's true. I wouldn't want to be in his shoes and hand over something to another architect firm that may be different than how that architect firm would look at the facilities as well. So whatever architect firm we would have chosen probably wouldn't have started with what DLR had. They would have wanted to do their own thing. So.
Sure, but the direction from the board, I think we're saying here is they both have to come in as one thing. Is that what everybody believes?
I don't see how we can really have a full master plan until the community weighs in. We can have an idea.
But the agreement,
but I don't
Yeah.
know that would involve the full master plan. Unless I don't
No,
understand what goes in a master plan.
Well, the agreement to do and I'll back up, and because I'm going to say it a little more directly, which is, I think everybody's asked for call it what you want, deferred maintenance, all this master plan stuff is what are our liabilities as a school district for what we already have, right? I think everybody's asked for it and it doesn't exist. It got put on the back burner. It was being worked on. And I get it that, hey, if we're not going to be there, then we don't want to do this work. I kind of get it. I kind of don't, to be honest with you. But now that we're looking to go forward, we need to understand what the liabilities that we have in our existing infrastructure so we can account for that properly in our community engagement when we go out for a bond. And I'm completely making up numbers here, but if we have $20 million in deferred maintenance, then we need to understand that when we talk about what we need to ask for a bond going forward for the additional 1,000 students that we're going to have over the next 5 years. My concern from my seat is not ending up like these other school districts who keep building new and then have the left behinds, the haves and the have-nots. And moving forward without both of those agreements in place at the same time would be a mistake. Not that the work is completed or anything else, but there are deadlines to be done. And we're not just tossing out hey, here's the new, cool, fresh, easy work. Deferred maintenance is the hard work.
Yeah, and that's pretty much been our way we've done it in the past. Not the easy way, the hard way. I mean, it's making sure we had those deals because there's two things that I'm going to go back a little history lesson. Before we had capital outlay, when we no longer had capital outlay, that was our only way to take care of the deferred maintenance and those kind of things. So we had to put a lot of time in up front to make sure that is we were going to bond, that we covered those things that we were going to need for the next, several years. We didn't have the luxury of, if we had a parking lot failure or a roof failure, 200,000 and some dollars in capital outlay that we had at one time in our account wasn't going to go very far. So they had to be a part of a bond issue. So therefore, it's kind of the way we've always, from my side of it, we've had to roll those into bonds. Now we've got some luxury that we can use capital outlay for some things. There'll be some decisions that'll have to be made. What is a capital outlay item and what is a bond item? In that same maintenance stuff. So
I just wanted to say that I totally agree that we need to have those agreements together. The planning part, I think, that needs to happen before the community engagement is kind of the status of where we are and staff priorities. And then the community comes in and sometimes shares some different priorities. Case in point, the elementary school, Spring Hill Elementary gym. That wasn't necessarily something that needed to be done, but it was a equity sort of issue. And so that kind of came out of those community engagement meetings. And sometimes the community wants to see a little bit of each area get some love when we do some different projects. So I think it is really important. But to your point, April, that you might not quite know what needs to be done. I think that's true, but you need to know what the status is of everything. And then the community can make some of those choices of what priorities are too. So
before we would start community engagement, I would fully expect us to have the facility assessment at pretty much the finished stage. So, and would have shared that probably with the board too, because you're going to want to look at that and help us to decide as well, potentially. So, but then the community is going to want to look at that too and say, the playgrounds at Spring Hill Elementary School, which isn't a thing because we're doing them this year, but those are in very bad shape. They're still, they're not up to the standard of what we have in other schools. So therefore, we're going to want to do those. And some of those things we'll have a list, and it may be, so long, but we're only gonna be able to do so many of those anyway, but it'll be deciding what's capital outlay, what's bond, and timeframes too, just as buildings would be timeframe too. We don't need a building till 2032. No matter how much the community really wants it, I will work to sway the community that why do we want to build, another middle school when we're well above capacity just because I want a middle school in South Spring Hill or.
Okay, I have two questions for you, sir. One, can you help me understand, and I am not a construction-minded kind of gal, the difference between a master plan and a deferred maintenance?
Deferred maintenance is really your physical plant and the physical part of your buildings, the roofs, the HVAC systems, the carpet, probably not too much on painting or some of those kind of things, because painting are things we do annually anyway within buildings, but it can be carpet, because if you're looking at a school and the whole school needs to be recarpeted because it's 20 years old in that building right now, then that would be potentially a fairly large dollar item, and that would be on your facility assessment. Your master plan is going to deal with spaces as well. So we need this much space to handle the expected growth that RSP has told us that we're going to have. So they'll work together in that aspect, but your master plan is going to be encompassing the physical spaces, and most of the time it will encompass, it's a part of that is your physical plant assessment. So your building assessment too.
Okay, so then my second question is, do we have a deferred maintenance plan? So a listing of everything, the timing of it. I know that's something
That's what we're working with DLR on right now.
Okay, so I think that's what we are asking for.
Yeah.
So since 2018, since I've been sitting in the audience, our board has asked for that and not seen it. So I really think that's one of the key pieces for us to know what are we looking at here? I mean, you guys come and give us, and you're about to give us an update on all your summer projects. and I know we've asked this before, how do you decide what projects to do? How do you prioritize all of that? It would be wonderful for us to see that completed list of of everything that's on there and the timing of it. So this is due in 2028. This is due in 2 years. This is this. Because what I see happening is things like our parking lot. Like, oh, it's here and obviously that kind of went a little funky, but I don't know what big things are coming up. So I don't have a list to go back to and say, yeah, I want to approve another $600,000 because it looks like we could push a couple things out a year or 6 months or something like that.
Yeah, and we do have, while we don't have put together yet an official document for that, we do have roof consultants that come through and walk all of our roofs and give us our ideas of that for a number of years. And we used the Garland Company, and actually they're doing one again this year as well to help DLR now with theirs, doing a roof assessment right now. And they would give us this looks like it needs to be replaced in 2026. This roof is, based on the average life of those. Parking lots, I will say that those are more based on the condition they are a year or two out, because you can try to plan, but you can't. You can give it your best guess for those, but when one starts to go bad, they usually start to go bad. It's not we've got parking lots that are 30 years old that are still holding up in a couple of places, but other parts that are 15 years old that aren't. So you have to continually update it is really.
I would agree that
uh-huh.
an updated list would be really
annual.
wonderful.
So, but yeah, and that's what we're trying to put together with a facility assessment now, so that it can be out here for the board and everybody else to look
So
at.
do you think that will be ready by the 12th when we're?
No, the list will not be ready by the 12th. The agreement with DLR to do that will be ready by the 12th.
Do we not keep an internal list of that? I mean, I think that obviously the really finalized one will take DLR's help, but I
don't want to speak for Mr. Delphia, number
Okay.
one.
I understand.
So where he's at with that.
Sure.
I know Kylie has quite a list. Most of it's paper lists and stuff right now that he's keeping on things and what he sees, but I don't want to lock him into something. I really would recommend that we wait. I know it's not what you want to hear from me, but that you wait till DLR gets their assessment. It's really not going to take that much longer after we get started back up with them. So we have a meeting with them on Friday to begin that process. Even though they're not under contract, they also want to get going because it's a key portion of the bond issue and stuff. So,
Well, and I know it's not fair since Kylie is not here, but I want to thank you, John, for kind of putting it into perspective. So the light bulb went on and I had the aha moment with it. But, DLR was working on this list and then they stopped. So there's already something in progress, right? And I know Kylie's been working on what I think you're referencing is, the logical internal, these are the things we know about. These are the things our administrators are telling us we need at our buildings. And I just want to make sure that we know, as John said, going into this, I'm just going to pile on with what you said, is now is our opportunity, in my mind, to kind of play catch up.
Mhm.
Because there are some things that I'm aware of at the high school that, it's long overdue. There may be some things that DLR comes back with that just logically make sense too, like a complete retro on LED lighting, right? Things that kind of pay for themselves over the course of 24 months or something like that. Those are the types of things we can expect, right?
yeah, I mean, like right now, for an example, when you said LED lighting, we're doing the LED lighting in the gymnasium at Spring Hill High School.
Yeah.
Some of those things that make sense, but again, because we're using capital dollars, while the payments, while the payback is there,
Yeah.
there's still not an unlimited amount of
No, I get it.
of dollars to do that all in one year.
I'm lying. I don't get it, the whole finance thing, but I do understand
Yeah.
that,
But-
now is our chance.
But no, that's Mr. Delphia, I
to
know.
catch up.
Him and I have talked quite a bit, and Kylie is definitely, I
Yeah.
mean, he wants this document as bad as you guys do, because it makes it much easier for him when he comes to you guys to say, guys, it's not just Kylie or the principals or whoever else. It's, it's the experts in the field. I mean, in DLR, it's not just an architect, it's their engineering department that's there looking at buildings as well. And we're using a roof consultant along with the DLR to look at other parts of the building too. So, I mean, just different. So again, there's no way it can be done by the 12. I mean, I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, no, I get
Yeah.
that. But Dr. Luttrell, do you think it'd be possible then to get Kylie to kind of give us an update, a detailed update on where that stands? I think what we're all looking for here is, is that list 80% complete? The list that we're in control of, not the DLR piece. We get that, right? But the piece that we're in control of that we should know, as Nicole
Yes.
said, on an ongoing basis. But
Yes, but I will, and again, I do not want to speak for Mr. Delphi either, put words in, but I know that he has even shared with me, even as early as my first month on the job here, hey, if money were no object, here's things that I know that long-term that and we've tried to, move through those. But again, you gotta remember, there are some items, most of the times on your facility assessment needs, the ones where you do need a lot of assistance from are your roofs, because you typically just don't, it'll cost at least $1.5 million to do a full roof, at least. Okay, when it comes to your HVAC system of a building, you're talking millions of dollars. Okay, so those are, and so, but, a lot of the ones, that like when it comes to LED light, we can many times, pencil those in and do those, just part of routine, summer maintenance, or even, throughout the school, depending on the scope. So, but yeah, he can definitely, give us a much better picture as to, what he has in place and what he's utilized to determine what kind of has a priority.
And after Friday's meeting as well, hopefully with DLR, we can kind of say, when do we think this deliverable? Can we have that done too? So, again, without a contract, they're stepping out on faith that the agreement's gonna work with us. So once we get it all done, they were stepping out on faith prior to that. And I think they just feel better about it now that we have technically selected them. We haven't got a contract with them yet, but we've selected them to be our architect firm. So they're doing things again with master planning and with everything bond issue related as well with us, just to get there, just so it's expedited.
So it's really 3 separate things, right? It's a contract, it's a deferred maintenance list, and it's a master plan once we have the deferred maintenance list and the items that we want to work on.
Yeah, I'm going to correct. I don't.
You
mean-
go ahead.
I don't remember to sound bad when I say correct. Maybe that's
No, you're good.
but not deferred maintenance. It's a building assessment,
Okay,
because it's way more than just deferred maintenance.
okay. So
Um,
it's deferred it's a
yeah.
contract, deferred maintenance.
yeah, it's
I mean-
way more than deferred maintenance. I mean,
Right.
because it
Building
isn't
we don't know.
things we don't know, or just based on the fact that we know this roof is 20 years old, that 5 years from now, it's probably going to be, and that's, again, it's the same thing with parking lots and those kind of things. You know that the average life of a parking lot is probably this. Some of them you're going to get 30 years out of them. Some of them you're going to get 10 years out of. Same thing with a roof. The good thing with roofs is most of our roofs on the newer buildings have a fairly long warranty, and they're being covered under a longer warranty. So we can hedge that a little longer. So
Yeah, and one comment that I have to piggyback onto what you said was that, part of my concern in understanding this list, which again, my apology for using the term deferred maintenance and muddying the water, is understanding, what actions we need to take to have parity within our facilities, so that we're providing everyone, an equitable workplace within to work at and for our students to have. So that's part of my concern as well, in that. Because it's not all just, I mean, we have parking lots, but to use as an example, which is a terrible example, but this needs to be worked on. You get where I'm going. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
I mean, a good example to me would have been the playground at Spring Hill Elementary School.
Yep.
You know, they were behind where everybody else's playgrounds were. So it needed to come up to, you know, and that's, to me, that's probably one of the good examples that we can share this being taken care of. You know, and there's other things in the teaching areas as well. You know, but you also have to think that we, in parity, it's hard to have true parity because one person's in a 20-year-old building and somebody's in a 5-year-old building, and technologies change within that building. We may have LED lights, but we didn't have LED lights that dimmed and changed colors and did everything else in that building at the time, but now it's a standard option. So.
Or we may have double glazed windows in some buildings and
Triple glazed in another.
or single in another. So
Yeah.
that, do you get where I'm going?
No, absolutely. So.
Tim, do we just do building assessments when we're getting ready to move towards a bond proposal, or is this like every 5 years somebody does this, or?
Since we've been doing bond frequency, it's pretty much lined up with the bonds when we've done bonds. So that's why we're a little bit behind really on, you know, so in 2017, going into the 2018 time would have been the last time we would have really asked DLR to look at our facilities and make recommendations on what needed to be done.
Well, I just know in my world, this is something that happens before. If somebody's doing improvements to their building, that's why I get kind of not having a full list at this point, because a lot of times that is just, you wait until you're doing a project to get that full list. So I understand that part of it.
Yeah. I think that has been our practice in the past, but I know talking with Mr. Delphia, that's not the way he wants to be anymore either. I think he would like to make it more of a continually updating list.
An ongoing agreement.
An ongoing agreement.
We're big enough now that we need to be doing this full time, whereas before we were only doing it when we grew.
Yeah, and not to a point. I mean, one of the facility assessments we looked at was probably 100,000 student district out in California, where they had a full-time person that did all the updating to their facility assessment. I mean, it was quite the document. It was a living, breathing, growing document that was updated, I would say weekly even. It was part of their master plan as well. So, and that's why I say they go hand in hand, because your master planning can go hand in hand with it. But that's not really what we're looking at as far as that full deal, because of the manpower it would take. It was way more encompassing than just facility assessment. We would like something that can be a living document, but not to the point that it's going to take a full-time person to do it. And the way theirs was, even in a district our size, it was going to take somebody almost half of their time to keep this document up. So, yeah. But again, Kylie wants it to be a document that's opened often, not just we do it every 5 years and then we come out and, oh, it's time to do it again. So.
It's almost like a building grade card. You know what I mean? Like the high school might be getting a C in the parking lot, but an A for the roof. I would guess you guys probably know that in your very in-depth knowledge of everything that is our building.
We can tell you what HVAC systems are performing well and which ones aren't.
Right.
Based on our service tickets and all that. And same thing with our Todd Brown is very instrumental on like carpet and stuff like that, as he's in the buildings every day and in almost every building and working with custodians, he knows that, this building's carpet is starting to age out pretty badly and those kind of things. So with our different staff that are working on things, we know about a lot of it. And Kylie has his maintenance crews pretty separated to where different people have different responsibilities. And so they're pretty good at letting him know that, hey, this roof is starting to take a lot of our time. So.
All right, well, thank you. Any other questions?
And and Mr. Adelphia hopefully will be here in next meeting. Doesn't have another family.
I'm sure he
Problem.
appreciates you
I was gonna
stepping
say,
into the
Tim's
hard
gonna
question.
drag him in. We're gonna see him.
That's right. I told him when I get fired for what I say tonight that I got it all on now. So. No.
You're not getting out that easy.
Oh, man. Okay. No.
Well, thank you.
Just wait till the next item. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, well, moving on to 8.03 Spring Hill High School pavement project.
Yes, we were, as you know, the last meeting, we provided an update on our parking project at the high school, which had ran into, a few hiccups. And there were some items that were looked at and reviewed and discussed. You all were also kind enough to approve in terms of dollars to fix it the correct way. Since that time, it's been monitored very closely. There continues to be some hiccups that have developed, but like I said, working with the contractor, Mr. Meek, Mr. Delphia, kind of come up with a plan of what they think will be the way to get it fixed correctly in certain areas so that we can get it ready and get it open for school year, and then maybe possibly have to look at come back and addressing the other areas, at another time. And Mr. Meek is going to give you an overview of that and what's the latest with that.
All right. I'll just go to this real quick. This is Mr. Delphia flew the drone the other day just to get a quick view of some of that we've done already. You can see what's the dark black is what has already been done. That's the good news that those are done. The bad news is just north of area 2, about half of that next parking lot. As we had to have a place to pull the trucks out, and as we would pull the trucks out as we were paving, they were sinking in. We limited to as small of an area as we could so they get out and turn and finish that job. We're basically now have created a funnel from the end of area 2 down to the just south to the bottom side of area 1. And then the service drive or the main exit drive there as well. We had not planned on doing those areas to the left of area 1 all the way up to, yeah. If you haven't had the chance to drive on it, I don't recommend doing it because you might lose the bottom of your car if you're in a car. So, not good, but at the same time, it's going to get done. The good thing is I think we're going to be done with everything we're doing except for some seal coating and the striping by this weekend. So all of the heavy construction is going to be done. That comes at a cost of dollars and some areas that we don't get to touch yet. So area 3 on the picture, we're having to put off until next year. If we try to go in there and start milling it now, it's a very good chance that it would not be done by the time that school starts. And so it'll last another year. It's not going to be pretty, but it'll last another year, and we'll be doing that. Area 4 is the same way. Area 4 is not in terrible shape as well. It's a small parking lot, kind of out of the way. But with the additional area that we had to do north of area 2 and south of area 1 and the driveway on the west side of the parking lots, we have swapped some money for the area 3 that we were doing and had to get in the contingency another $70,000. that you guys told me last week. So square footage wise, we've increased area 3 and 4. What we're doing this time is more than they were. One of them was and both of those were small 2-inch. These are full depth 6-inch plus additional dirt coming out of there that's saturated and coming back in with 6 inches of AB3 as well. So a lot more materials going back in. The good thing about it, the way we bid this out, is that we did have unit pricing on everything, and it was consistent with what the bid cost based on the architects. I work with the architects to my engineers estimate. So they checked that when the bids came in to make sure that somebody wasn't just giving a unit price. It was doing based on their quantities. They had to give us quantities of what they planned to put in as well, and unit cost on all this. So it was pretty easy to hold them honest, we feel. So, and again, we're working a funnel. They've got most of it milled. They've got started milling the driveway area. The 2 areas in the main parking lot are milled, and then the driveway they started milling today. Should be done milling it tomorrow. We'll start bringing in the AB3 for they'll work it a little bit, and then they'll start bringing in the AB3 and have paving done by Saturday. So.
Okay.
So those are full depth mills on the area, the additional areas. They're digging it down, taking out the saturated and putting AB3 in.
Yes, yeah, it's full depth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should,
So that's better than what we would have maybe done with it anyway.
There are 2 areas we're working in. We really hadn't planned on doing anything to those other than the driveway. We had it milled already and was going to do a 2-inch overlay on it. But now they're doing a full depth on it.
So that was milled, and the drive lane was already milled, and it just broke up when they were exiting.
Yeah, it did. Yes.
Okay.
should a healthy parking lot have been able to handle those trucks?
Yes,
Okay,
because they could drive on the area to the west of area 2. They can drive a fully loaded semi on that with no problems. We
got it.
stopped them from doing that very often, only if they had to access that way, because you've already got a place that's torn up. Let's drive on that. So
Right.
we had a few meetings with the contractor, said, make sure your guys are doing that. And you have that occasional guy that just cannot figure out how to get into the parking lot. Just like you can have that occasional driver of a car that can't figure out how to get into a parking lot and will go in the wrong way.
So that,
But that was the area that we did back when Sharon first started on the
that's
board.
what I was gonna ask. So the
So-
area west of area 2, that's been redone once already,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then the area 1 and the area, I guess, north of area 2 or east of area 1, that was new. That was the extension of the parking lot
Yes.
when we built the addition on,
Uh-huh.
correct? So
Yeah.
that's a little bit newer than,
Yeah, it is newer and it's a surprising condition when we got in there. Once we got the full mill out, it's as solid as can be. But about 3 inches of soil, or what they call fatty clays, which they try to build on, was deteriorated and just mush underneath it. So, yeah.
You said we went 70K into the contingency fund, and we're punting on 3 and 4 for the year.
Mhm.
So the question is, so did we spend all the dollars that we appropriated for this in area 2?
Yes.
So we spent all the money anyway?
Yeah.
Is the question?
Not all, I mean, we spent all of area 2 and 1 that I came and asked you guys for the additional funds for.
And what I'm saying is, in addition to the original
Yes.
approval that was,
Yeah.
so we spent all the money, I'm just saying it out loud. We spent all the money that we had done for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And what we've got is all of area 1 done, more than area 2 than we wanted. And
More of area 1, because we come to the north a little bit there too.
okay, more of that.
Yeah, not all of, when you look at where it says area 1, we only went a couple of about 8 to 12 feet further to the right of area 1. And then area 2, an area about halfway up there, we squared it off so that it's easy when we come back next time. The engineer first came out and we drew a crooked line of where we can mill, and I'm like, that works really good on paper and keep my costs down. But when I come back later, the next engineer is going to want to square that off and do it straight. So let's do that area right now. And so we made it a rectangle instead of a 8-sided object going across the upper area 2. And squared that off. And there's still, I want to say, like 3 or 4 parking stalls of that area that's left that's existing. So,
Okay.
but it's still in,
Yeah. So,
there's no real sign of deterioration in it because we had no heavy traffic on it at this point. So,
okay. But we basically did roughly
one
little-
point,
a little more than half of what we intended to do for roughly
yeah. I mean, we
2.5 times the money.
We started at 600 and I had it open here, but my computer went to sleep. 600 and some $1,000 in the bid, and we're up over $1 million right now.
Okay.
Full construction.
And I'm not bringing that up to
No,
pan anybody or anything.
no,
That's my Joe Friday, just the facts. Get to the facts.
no. I don't like change orders at all, and I can tell you that my 2 biggest change orders ever in my life have both been parking lots, and both in this parking lot right here. One back in 2016, 17, 18, whenever it was Sharon started on the board. She's been my bad luck ever since, I guess. No. No. The parking lot's been my bad luck for anything else.
At the time when we did that original thing, I think it was actually 2013 or something like that. It was kind of portrayed that it maybe wasn't done correctly the first time, but this doesn't seem to be the case.
It was done correctly under the methodology that they used at the time.
Okay.
We no longer lay asphalt directly on fatty clays. There's 2 things that we'll do. We'll either use a bridge of the AB3, which gives you another 6 to 8 inches of AB3, which most of you that know AB3 is the lime dust filled in with gravel that sets up almost like concrete. Or if it's really bad and I can't get the subsoil to go, I'll bring in a Portland cement, and they will introduce that into the top 12 inches of soil. They'll till that in, and then along with water, and then they'll let that set, they'll roll it, compact it, and that sets up and gives you like a 12-inch, almost the same layer as concrete. That's a much more expensive option than AB3. Plus you're going much deeper, and you have a lot more risk of getting into electrical lines and parking lot lines and stuff like that when you do it in a parking lot. So therefore your costs go up again because you got to get an electrician involved in it to correct your parking lot lights. So, and again, it's almost twice the price of AB3.
Yeah. And so the balance of the parking lot is all on top of fatty. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is what
Area
it
5
is.
back there, the one at the very top right. I was a little worried about that when they got in that. When they pulled that out, the areas that they milled out, once they milled down, it had just failed. It seemed to be once they milled down the extra, because it was all full depth. Once they milled down the extra inches, they got into good subsoil, and put it back just like it was, and the rest of it, we oversized it just a little bit to take in what they milled seemed to be in good shape. So, it'll still be on clay, and it could fail at some point, but it's not. At this point, it's holding up well, and that gets a lot of the traffic back in there because the trash trucks and all the food service delivery trucks go back there, so.
And I think I wondered about buses. It looks like the bus lane is fine, but sometimes our buses park out here. Are we worried about for the amount of cars that get in there? Sometimes this parking lot's completely full.
No.
And we shouldn't worry about buses because as you say, some of these trucks were sinking in. Does that not happen to buses?
No, you're talking about a school bus is you think about it being a big, large, heavy vehicle, but it's not near as heavy as what a semi loaded down with gravel or asphalt is. So we've really had no problem because we've had buses parking all over the parking lot and they haven't really created a problem for us over the years. So even at that,
So, and then the area where you said don't above north of area 2, where you said don't go in there, you might damage your car. That'll be
No.
repaired before school starts.
yeah, everything will be repaired by Saturday. Is that our plan unless we get a large rainstorm? So no rain between now and no rain dances.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that's, when you said trucks were going through, were those tandems or end dumps?
those were all tandems.
They're all tandems, okay.
Yeah, I mean, and they're all running heavy. You know, that's the name of the game nowadays is running heavy. They're tandems with the extra
The extra
two
buggy,
axles on
yeah,
them and so they can.
so they can run 80.
Yeah, so they can run maximum loads and that's the name of the game because there's not enough trucks out there. So everybody has gone to those trucks so that they can get a maximum load.
Well, and to that end, going forward in the future, I mean, then do we just say, hey, we gotta take half loads or we gotta get end dumps in or something? Because I mean, this just got away from us real bad.
I mean, the next phase we already have an exit plan for how to get in and out of it. So
Okay.
I'm not too worried about because most of the areas that they'll be running over are areas that we brought back up and the bus loop and stuff like that is already a thicker. It's 8 inches. Yeah.
Have we always used the same vendor for this?
No,
We use different ones, so.
different vendors all the time, really. So different engineers. We've had 3 different engineers as well. We used Trans Systems, Terracon, and Caw Valley is doing it. And the original parking lot was Trans Systems, I think, and then the next one was Terracon, and then Caw Valley now. And so it's really a matter of the way they do parking lots. They continually change. It's like building systems change and everything else, and they think they get a better system. And I question sometimes are we always getting better, or is it cheaper, or what is it? But I do believe what we're doing now seems to me to make very good sense. So,
Well, and maybe that's a setup for me then, Mr. Meek, because generally when I get bad news, I always try and end on good news. So through this whole process and with school coming over the horizon quicker than we want to admit, what's the good news with this project?
that we'll be ready for school.
Okay. Did we pick up that Western Drive? Was that Western Drive originally going to be done, the driveway?
It just had a 2-inch mill and overlay on it.
That was always a part of the plan.
That was
Okay. I'm just looking for the silver lining here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And I think one other silver lining not aligned directly to the high school parking lot would be also, you can put some sunshine on the fact that we did have a couple other parking lot projects across the district, Prairie Creek, as well as at the Early Learning Academy. Those, no problems.
Like they're done, you didn't just curse us, right?
Prairie Creek it's not done, but
Oh,
the
boy.
heavy part is done.
Dr. Latrell, you better find wood, man.
No, the heavy part is done. We still have to seal coat the parts that weren't re-asphalt, so it'll all be black and all look good. So again, that's a lightweight.
I saw the new lines at She's. They look great.
Yeah.
I love the arrows.
And that has all been done. If it's not on something that we seal coated, that has been done in-house by Mr. McCutcheon. We have a striper that he's using, and he's painted anywhere that you see new lines on a parking lot that isn't a seal coated or a brand new asphalt. Mr. McCutcheon's done that, so he's worked very hard this summer to get it all done.
Tim,
All right.
was the stuff done in 2013 or 2014? Was that put back on clay, or was there AB3 underneath that?
It was actually put back on, I think it was 12 or 14 inches of ag lime, because we had to go so deep in order to get to suitable soils. We kept working it, you know, as you do it, you disc it and try to get it to dry out and everything else. And we'd already planned to put ag lime on it. But we couldn't get down there, and we finally got to where we were comfortable with it, and ended up with like 12 or 14 inches of ag lime on that.
That was basically fly ash. So essentially all the bad, except for area 3, has already kind of been firmed up for the substrate.
Yes, pretty much. Area
Okay.
3 is the only part of the original substrate that hasn't been done.
So we
And
won't be fighting this then again, really. We shouldn't be fighting it again.
We'll be fighting it next year or the following year, whenever we decide we're going to do that area 3, when we actually have them come
Right.
out and do that. But we'll plan at that point on doing a full depth excavation. We're not gonna try to do a 2-inch overlay over part of it or anything else. It's just gonna be a full depth and go at it from the beginning in that direction, just because we know what we've gotten into twice already. There's no reason to have a change order, you know.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Mr. Meek, again for the update and the harder questions.
No problem.
All right, moving on, 9.01 is an action item. Approval of new textbooks for Carpentry 1 Auto Home Life courses at Spring Hill High School.
Madam President, I move that we approve new textbooks for Carpentry 1 Auto Home and Life courses and Auto Home and Life courses at Spring Hill High School as presented.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, Rachel, take the vote, please.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Hull,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes,
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
approved.
wonderful. Thank you very much. Moving on, superintendent's report.
Just a couple quick items. The annual Kansas Association of School Board Conference is coming up in November. The registration opened for that a little over a week ago on a Friday, and it was already sold out within about 3 days in terms of the lodging. But we did register each member for that weekend. And if you are able to attend, if you have not already done so, please email or notify Mrs. Henderson so she can make sure that you're good to go, because we are able on the registration component to get a full 100% refund on any cancellation, as long as we make it 60 days prior to the start of the conference. And so again, if you would just let her know, but we have re-registered. It is the 15th, 16th, and 17th end of November. Also want to highlight the fact that, again, the new school year is definitely nearing. Last week, our HR department, led by Ms. Hackney, brought a lot of new teachers on site in this very room for several hours of onboarding to give them an introduction to the school district in terms of basic information they were given, how to log into the network. They were also, given their health insurance benefit information. So again, so they can kind of, again, once we get closer, when they come back for new teacher orientation in very, very early August, late July, they will have that part out of the way and can focus, on some other items. But again, our HR department, Ms. Hagland, do a great job getting everybody ready for the new school year. And speaking of that, as I said last month, our first student attendance day is set for Tuesday, August 13th. And that's only like 21 calendar days away from now. And that's my superintendent's report.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Luttrell. All right, 11.01, future discussion items.
Again, we hit on those last, but nothing's really changed. The one big thing that came out, if you remember last month, we did have a little bit of some talk about when we might look at some more information about student cell phones. And I found it very interesting that within I guess the state board was listing, because 3 days later, the state board met and they are going to appoint a blue ribbon task force to study cell phone use in schools and come back, and hopefully their timeline is by late fall, have some recommendations that they can offer forward that school boards can then take and discuss and see if they fit. And so that was very interesting. So we definitely at least will have some good information that we can maybe work from as we continue to grapple with and decide what options are going to be best. I do know that since the last meeting as well, some of you have been have shared some information that those of you that have been on the board for any length of time, back a couple of years ago when this initial discussion came up in terms of the actual surveys that were distributed to staff, teachers, students, shared those once again with our new members of the board would have it. We also had shared out with us some actual information from the meetings where that was discussed, so you could kind of see what the dialogue that led to our current kind of procedures protocol that we use for that. So that will be, again, continue to be, have some discussion at some point in the near future, and we'll watch that closely. I'm still working on, like I said, we are gearing up for it with new school year. So we do have the annual trainings and different things, as well as the work days that teachers will have when they come back in August. Some of the main things they'll be doing that there are some standard trainings, but there are also some variances between buildings. If they have a new curriculum series, they might get some time on. One thing that I think has been done previously, it's been hit or miss, and we're probably going to do, if you're interested, there are mandated trainings that are someone that you have to do, like the mandated reporter one, but there's a whole array of other video type mandated trainings that all of our staff annually must watch at their own leisure time. But yeah, it's documented, and they take a little short quiz on each one. And what we can do is we can also make Ms. Hackney and HR, said they can also make those mandated reportings and trainings, set you all up to where each of you would get those. You would not necessarily have to complete them, but that way you would kind of know what the same type of process and expectations that we have for our staff. And so unless there is a lot of just, if you don't want that, just let me know. But otherwise, I'll have our HR department and Ms. Hackney kind of prepare that for you. So just so you can kind of get a feel for what our staff have to undergo. And then, as I said, we already kind of, discussed earlier about the school maintenance. It's been on there for a while, like I said, and I think now that we do have the architect contract coming and everything, as we said, we need all that can be addressed, as one, because as Mr. Meeks said, I do for a fact that is something that Mr. Delphia definitely knows is needed and definitely will help not only him do his daily work, but also when he has to communicate, with you all. You all also have a document you can look at, because I've always said it's just like a student handbook. People may not always like things, but when you can show them where it's in writing, hey, look, this has been something that we needed, or this is what people tend to sometimes accept that a little better than when there's nothing at all in place. So that is a little bit about, some of the future items that we'll be discussing at some point, or you'll be getting information on.
Wonderful, thank you. Anyone have items they'd like to add?
I have a question. Where are we at with the third SRO?
Oh, that's another great question. In fact, I went to the best training today that had some of our SROs there. But yes, our third SRO, female, is set to join us. They'll be here ready for the new school year. In fact, our administrative retreat starts tomorrow, and on Wednesday afternoon, right after lunch, the Sheriff's Department head SRO is coming on to talk to our mentors and going to go over how the third one's going to be utilized and where they're going to be assigned and how they're going to kind of address it out. And then I said, I still plan on it is, and I guess I should add that too, but we do plan from last winter, spring, there was also interest that at some point there would be interest in knowing, hey, what does a typical day or a week look like in the life of an SRO? And that is on the burner to get done. Our plan is to hopefully try to have something by the time we get school off and running, everybody said October-ish to where we can bring them and have them give a report on that. But no, we're looking forward to it. It's a go. The person's, known for months that the hopes is proved that they're going to be on here. And so we'll, like I said, definitely make sure that we have them to where you all can see them. That help? Yes. So we will have 3.
Any things we want to add for future meetings? Okay. Wonderful. All right. Board work calendar.
And that will continue. Again, you've got that continue to get filled out as we head into throughout the school year with, upcoming and some of our meetings coming up in August, September. At some point in time, we'll have some assessment data to share with you from our state assessments. We also will have plan on giving you some program reports. It's not on actually penciled in yet because we're going to be talking with our administrators when they get back as to what would be the best time. But one of the programs that our elementary uses that you all have probably heard quite a bit about is called The Leader in Me. And we do invest, that's not a free program. There are resources that we utilize. And I'm planning to have, again, very early in the fall, have a presentation from our elementary principals and some teachers about how that program is implemented at our elementary schools and to what extent and how it helps with the overall aim of student success. So there's a lot, but as far as, the heavy lifting on a calendar, it's busy all year long, but the January, February, March, April, May, those are really busy because, you're hiring. You also have evaluation of our staff, evaluation of your administrative staff. And so we're kind of into it now. We start then of course, you're going to have our revenue neutral hearing. Doug, Mr. Swin will be front and center a lot, especially on the 29th when we do the work session next Monday night with Finance 101 to kind of give everyone an overview and as well as to kind of share how the budget development kind of intertwines with our state mandated, again, the building needs assessments that are conducted each year.
Okay, so.
And so
Sorry, go ahead.
that's
sir.
okay. Out of the calendar, the acceptable use and content filtering, I feel like we already approved that. I'm just wanting to say out loud that was an item that we'd done before and we didn't need to do, or is it something that we need to talk about more in the future?
I'm gonna have to look at it again. I think it's I think there's similar wording, but I think it might be
But yeah,
something separate, but I'll look at that.
it might be something separate.
I
Okay.
think it is.
And just a reminder that we do have a work session next Monday at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock here. Awesome. All right. Moving on. I do want to say one thing. Anyone else have issues opening those Google Docs? Or am I the only one? Just,
On occasion, I absolutely have problems opening some Google Docs.
I had to download the app onto my phone to be able to access them,
okay.
but
Okay.
now I can get into them. So
It could be user error. I will work on that. Okay. Next up, we do need an executive session.
Sorry. Madam President, I move that the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel to protect the privacy interest of an identifiable individuals under coma. Those to be in session include the Board of Education members and the superintendent of schools and others as requested. The executive session is to begin at 7:30 with the open meeting resuming at no later than 8:00
I think
At
8 o'clock would be ample.
at this place.
Second.
All right, there's a motion, a second. Any discussion? Rachel, click the vote, please.
Mr. Hole,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
approved.
What time did you start at?
Right, we are back and I believe we have an action item.
Madam President, I move to approve 14.01 as presented. Great recommendation.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, Rachel, collect the vote, please.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Hole,
Yes.
approved.
Awesome. Thank you guys for today and we are adjourned.
Good job.